Welcome back to Media Week. Well, the March quarter magazine sales numbers from the Audit Bureau of Circulations didn't make for great reading, with all the weeklies reporting falls. The latest readership figures from Roy Morgan, though, were mixed. Total readership up 2.4% on year. Let's get the details now with James Manning from Media Week. And James, all the magazines really reporting these lower circulation figures, but some big falls at Who, OK, BRW and TV Week as well.
Yeah, worth noting in this round of figures, the only people reporting circulations were the weeklies, whereas in the readership we had figures for all magazines. But as you say, in that, I'm not sure what slide we've got first, is it the weekly sales, everybody was down, as you pointed out, with the Women's Day, New Idea, That's Life, the sort of real life story magazines, That's Life and Take 5, all down there. In the readership, yeah, mixed figures. Women's Day was up, New Idea was up. Open Road, the sort of NRA membership magazine, you know, it's got a good little story for advertisers, but the big fall was at the Women's Weekly, down about 20%.
Right, and we've got those circulation figures now, the readership figures up for you.
You see that Women's Weekly was sort of the big standout figure there. They said year on year that's something to do with the royal wedding, I think, in their comparisons from a year earlier. But, you know, I guess that's part of it, but it's probably not all of the story.
And in your opinion, these circulation figures seem to mirror what's happening with newspapers. Is it the same problems affecting both sets of media, or are there nuances in here?
There are nuances, but it's a little, again, it's the same thing, you know, that magazines are sending a bit of a mixed message to their readers when they, you know, put content online. Magazines are doing it less than newspapers, and they do digital editions. Should their readers be buying the digital editions or staying with the print product? It's becoming a little bit clearer now that magazines are going to try and keep that print audience as the premium product and just offer a digital alternative for people that do want it.
And on that note, let's bring James Heyer back in. He's Chief Strategy Officer at MEC Global for an agency perspective. James, this idea of what James Manning just mentioned, particular genres, particular titles, we are seeing some growth in food, health and lifestyle, plus those specialist titles. Is that a factor at all when considering advertising?
Obviously, we judge things on a title-by-title basis. It's not about entire genres. We'll look at this next ABC Circ, and it'll be another genre going up. So I don't think there's a predictable trend necessarily by category. And if you look at those genres, they're incredibly well represented online. So it's not as if, well, there's a dearth of content online, hence those categories are going up. I think there is a difference actually between, you know, lumping all of print together and saying they have the same problems. Magazines are absolutely about discretionary spend. They're an FMCG product. If you look at them in the top 20 in Woolworths, so it's much more about that than the fact that news has become commoditized. The product in magazines more considered, stronger editorial. They've realized that they aren't on the same road to demise that paper and press definitely is. So they're looking to fight it a lot harder. And certainly there hasn't been the online take-up that you'd have expected online with magazines.
What's your message to publishers if they come to you and say, look, you know, what do you think about our strategies? And would you recommend, yeah, look, keep print as your primary product? There still seems to be a good audience that enjoys that. And what would you do with digital?
So they've got to keep exploring digital. It is where consumers are going. It's where advertisers are not going yet, and the bar has been set very low from a revenue perspective, so they can't go there immediately. They need to sort out their paper product. It's still massively in demand. Look at the amount of copies they're selling. Out of the GFC, it won't go back to the circs they were achieving, but it will go up.
What about ad revenue? Because magazines have been beaten up here more than, say, radio, for example. Is this due to image concerns? Is there a perception out there about the sector?
There are two things here. There's been a crisis or a crash in confidence from advertisers in magazines. And you know, part of that is, if you look at, especially with global brands, they've been set 15%, 20% must spend in digital, and they've been ripping that out of the secondary channels, so it's not coming out of television, it's coming out of the other channels. Magazine has been an easy place to take that money as far as they're concerned.
As a group, Pacific magazines argue that they're probably performing better than maybe anybody else, and that they mount a pretty good argument, I guess. They had their In-Style Women of Style Awards this week. They seem to be doing nice things, connecting with their advertisers, their agencies, I guess. You've got a bit of a laugh on your face. What?
Yeah, Nick Chan always has a great argument.
But he's got the figures to back it up.
He's got the figures to back it up. I'm only teasing him, and he will get me. I think we have to look at magazines much like we would look at any brand. So FMCG have been doing brand extensions forever. Dove was just a bar of soap. It's now absolutely everywhere. Exactly the same is going to happen to magazines. The strongest ones will survive. But the brand extensions they're doing have to have an opportunity from a revenue perspective for the publisher, and hopefully from our side, an advertising opportunity for us. And I think where they come together, that makes it the right brand extension for them.
All right, testing times ahead for both magazines and newspapers. James, thanks for coming on Media Week today.
No problem. Thank you.
Well, now it's time for a check on the media sector's performance on the share market this week. Here's Stan Shamu from IG.
After a fairly stellar performance last week, we have seen a fairly mixed performance across the board in the media space. Of course, last week we had pretty good gains for Seven West Media and News Corp, but this week's been fairly mixed. We've seen News Corp continue its good run, of course, on the back of further gains in US markets, and of course, as the US economy continues to gain traction and seems to have turned a corner, it really does seem like it's breathing a new lease of life into the likes of News Corp. At the same time, the US dollar, which has continued to pop higher, has been fairly supportive of News Corp. Of course, it earns the majority of its earnings from the US, and as a result, the drop in the Aussie dollar below parity has really been a source of strength for News Corp. We have seen its shares print a fresh record high of $34.17. Already we've got brokers with favourable ratings on the stock, so all they can really do now is come out and upgrade their price targets. We've already heard from Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, coming out and giving News Corp a $39 price target. As a result, the stock continues to power ahead. We feel any pullbacks, particularly into the $32.50 region, will be used as an opportunity to buy and get involved in this stock, which continues to outperform and looks like it's got some solid medium and long-term prospects. At the same time, Seven West Media has pulled back. We did see some profit downgrades start to creep in towards the end of last week. As a result, it stalled near that $2.50 level. It didn't quite get there. And at the same time, it does really just show that investors are not quite as confident in the Seven West Media story as they are in the likes of News Corp. It really does seem like those downgrades which came in from Nomura and Macquarie really helped investors make their minds up about taking profits on the stock. As a result, it is struggling this week. It might find some support around $2.25, but at the moment it continues to underperform the sector.
And that was Stan Shamu there from IG. Well, coming up on Media Week, 10 wins the 2014 Winter Olympics rights, but the cricket broadcast deal still up in the air. That's next.